All right, welcome, Destry. Thank you for being
Welcome.
with us. Um,
Thank you
so
for
just
having me.
so just as we talked previously, this will be an interview. We're going to be recording this conversation. If there's anything that you don't want to share with us, you absolutely have the right not to do that. And then I also want to say that one of the reasons why we're doing this interview is because when it comes to learning about homelessness, um, I'm in the view, and I think many other advocates are in the view that it's best to learn it from people who have that lived experience. So I'm really
Mhm.
grateful that you're here today and that I can learn from you and listen to um, your experiences. Do you have any questions before we get started?
I don't. I don't.
All right. So, sir, do you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself? Who is Destry?
Who is Destry? Born in Pacific Beach, California in 1964. Went to Pacific Beach High School, graduated, went on to college. Raised a family for 20 years. I've got two sons and a daughter. Lived in Pacific Beach all those years as well. So I grew up there, and then my kids grew up there as well. And got them all through high school. That's kind of where the journey for my homelessness began. For me, it was that economic situation at this point because as my kids went off to school and got married and did their stuff, I lost my job. My company shut down, the company that I was working for in financial resources. And so once that happened, I was living pretty much week to week at that point. It didn't take much more than a couple months to basically wipe out the savings and just couldn't get another thing getting going to pay the bills. So I just made the decision that I'd let my landlord know I'm moving out and decided to go do what I did when I was a kid, and that's go down and sleep at the sand. I was down there for 3 years. Everything was fine. I mean, a lot of what goes on at that point is you're kind of settling into your environment.
Mm.
And, and back then they had a different policy when I first got on the street, when I first became homeless. The police's policy was arrest first. So at that point with Kevin Faulkner, when he was running the show, his solution was put us in jail. So if you're caught sleeping on the beach, smoking on a sidewalk, drinking a beer up on the street, like Cabrillo, then you'd end up going to jail. And that really sets you back too, because you are trying to get up off your feet. But if you keep getting everything you have taken and then they let you out of jail, you have nothing again. So now you got to start again. So they kind of exacerbate their own problem in that sense. They've got away from that though. In the last couple of years, I've seen a major difference in police interaction with us. As long as you're cool, they're cool with you. So that's pretty much my story. I had about 2 years ago, 2020, which was 2020. I got myself into a situation where I needed to go to rehab. So I spent a year in rehab just to get straightened out. I kind of went back to my teenage years for some reason. It was a midlife crisis or something. But and then I got out of that, and then it was December. Came back to the street. I was healthy and strong still, and suddenly I started having heart attacks. And I had 4 heart attacks in the year of 2021, a coma, and a stroke. So it was a tough year physically and health-wise. That's how I got into this program.
How old were you at that point?
Well, I'm 57 now. I just got in here about 7 months ago.
Okay.
And so I got in here because of my physical condition. There's no way when I came out of the hospital in August, I couldn't even walk. I was in so much pain. So,
there's a lot of questions I want to ask you about how you got to this motel. But just to kind of back a little bit, you were saying that under Mayor Faulkner, the police would just arrest people who are sitting on, who are taking themselves smoking. What was the crime that I guess people were being charged with that was warranting an arrest? And then,
well, they had a whole bunch of tools in their bag that they created through the city council, which was encroachment, which means if you're sitting on the sidewalk, you're blocking the public access to the sidewalk. Even if there's a 22-foot sidewalk, and you're sitting way on one side and there's 28 feet of, or 38 feet of sidewalk on the other side, they still will write you they used to write you encroachment. They haven't done that in a while. Like I said, that's all kind of changed. Smoking in public, drinking in public, just the nuisance tickets that they used to write. Then they started arresting us for them. Sleeping, they'd come out in the mornings every morning. You had to be out of the beach by 5 a.m. because the beach they traveled through and would arrest people for sleeping on the beach, which was news to me because, like I said, when I was a kid growing up here, that's what we did. We went down there in the summer and slept on the beach.
So it sounds like they were punishing people for being homeless.
Well, no, I look at it like this. I'm an educated man. I mean, I went to university, and I understand. And I was, like I said, I worked and owned a pool building and construction company for 20 plus years. So I get the other side of it. I get, yeah, it's a big problem, a huge problem. But at the same time, we're just beating a dead horse. We're going around and around in a circle, with the same ideas that they had 20 years ago, you know, and the same behaviors and same attitudes overall. So that's, you know, until that changes, then we come up with some newer ideas and we do it a new way, which some people are. I mean, that's why I'm talking to you, to promote the fact that there are some people that have actually started to figure this out. Some intelligent young kids out of school, some older people, you know, those of us that are functional on the beach, or I'm sorry, in the street, are trying to help out, because we all don't want to see it end. It'd be nice.
Yeah, I think we definitely all have to work together. But it's sorry, I cut you off. So you were saying that you had
please.
No, but you had medical complications, and then I think that's how you arrived in the motel. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
As far as what, the medical side?
So
we're getting into the hotel.
I think how you got into hotel. I know you're working with an Amy Zamedio, who's an amazing woman.
Yeah, she's been a friend of mine since we were kids. But once I had the big heart attack with the stroke and the coma, I couldn't even function. So I was sleeping on the street, like I said. But the hospital, thank God, for some reason, her influence, she was influential in this, but she made sure the hospital knew they couldn't release me from ICU to the streets. And so we were looking for something to do to get out. And she called me and said, hey, I've found an option, and it's a hotel. And you go in there and they'll, you know, it's for sick people like yourselves to have medical care and get off the street. There's no way I could, even today, after this week's sickness, could sleep on the streets anymore. It's a young man's sport. So yeah, she called me and said, I got this opportunity and moving here. And then what'll happen from there is they'll start getting you into housing. Right before your call, I got a call from my housing. Sister Teresa's in Calcutta downtown. And got me a room reserved, so I've got a place to go. They said they'll call me. Yeah, they do. You got to go in there and do a seminar and orientation, and they'll do so many a week. But he said they'll be calling me. So I'm like, yes, I can't wait to tell Amy.
Yeah, I know that's the new affordable housing built by Father Joe's here.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. And
in my experience now, working with in the streets with Amy and working with all these ill people that I'm around, including myself, that is, to me, the top of the iceberg that needs to be, I think more the bottom of the iceberg needs to be broken away, because it's just, what kind of country do we have? And senior citizens are literally dying in the streets. Would you imagine? I could imagine in my wildest dreams my grandmother living in the street, laying down at night in the concrete and dying there of a heart attack. She died of a heart attack one night. But I couldn't imagine that cruelty. And so we really need to consider the assistance available has to be allocated, but we can take and do it based on the percentage of allocation needed to help that group. And who's the most important ones? The super sick ones. The ones that are dying in the street from diabetes and heart disease and COPD and liver disease. And I mean, it's just right here in this hotel, it's like a circus of that. You know, everybody's got something, and we're all messed up. So that, to me, is one of the first things that need to be looked at and addressed, and then followed by the mentally ill, because they're the next ones that really need help. You know, they're mentally not capable of taking care of themselves, whereas The elderly are not physically capable of handling themselves or take care of themselves. How do we solve that? There's a lot of building ahead. If we're going to do it, we're going to start building places. And then you got the last percentage, which are the crazy kids, and they're the ones that people typically associate the homeless with, because they typically associate the homeless with the worst of us better rather than the best of us. Like many nationalities get that same kind of crap. They pick the worst. They have these really bad people. They're rapists. They don't talk about the saints. They're beautiful, raising 7 and 8 kids, and mom's working her butt off, and they don't ever talk about that. So, to me, that's something that we need to address.
Yep. And I love the point you made about if it's for the folks who are older being released from the hospital, that's someone's grandma. That's someone's grandma.
Yeah.
I think if we kind of were able to empathize with that, we would have more of a crisis situation, an urgent response. But I think people seem to be desensitized to what's going on, or they just don't know.
I don't know. I think it always comes down to economics. I don't. The healthcare is there. So these people, and you can talk to Amy about this, because she goes and picks people up off the street, total strangers in physical duress, and gets them to the hospital. Then when they get out, she goes and picks them up. But a lot of those people they're letting out from those situations, these are people that have had heart attacks, strokes. She was with 2 last week, 2 from ones that came out of the hospital and died within a day. If nothing else, we should have, if that's the case, there we go. If that's the case, then we need to address that as well. These people need temporary places to go pass away, because that's not right. That senior citizens, my grandma, your grandma, grandparents, are dying on the streets.
So when you were in the ICU, they knew that you did not have a home to go to, and they were still trying to discharge you to the streets?
No. In my case, they didn't. Amy was there right from the beginning. When I woke up from my coma, I got out of there after my coma wake up after about a week. So I had a week. She set it all up, because the hospital said it would be better. Do you have somewhere to go? It would be much better if you could go to a home or sleep in a bed, or get aftercare or something like that. And the hospital was trying to get me hooked up into one of these hospices. But there's certain things about what people have done, which we talked about before, that hasn't worked. And one of them is the community hospices, the community tents, the big white tents, what do they call those things? Those things don't work. That's a safety hazard, because some people aren't stable. They're sleeping right next to you, and if they smell, and they're horrible, and they're not well cared for, they're minimally staffed. It's not, and that's where a lot of the general population gets the idea that homeless people say, "I don't want help." Mm-hmm. That's misquoting what whoever said that was told. It's not with the HOT team, which is the HOT team, homeless outreach team, comes driving their vans down the street or on the beach boardwalk to help people. They don't have anything to offer, or they want to take you to the shelter. And most of us aren't going to the shelter. I like open air. I like freedom. I don't want bad people sitting next to me trying to steal my stuff. They're stealing from the homeless. They're homeless, but they're stealing from the homeless. Never made sense to me. But, so those things are failures in general. There's got to be a way with the basis of it. We can utilize it for temporary housing and shelter for the other group. Keep in mind that the general statistics are 22% of the homeless population in our state are mentally insane. 13% are drug addicts. So the drug addiction thing that they keep throwing out is also a falsehood, because that it's the same population who do up to USD, and you lined 100 kids across the lawn. That GP, that general population, has the exact same, almost probably the exact same, maybe even more percentage of people that are doing it, but no one's talking about blaming them for that. So they got to quit saying this. It's across the board. That's not the homeless problem. It's America's problem, society's problem. That's where that problem comes from. It has nothing to do with the homeless problem. Homeless problem is I don't have income. I have Social Security. So I have $900 a month. Rent for me for a studio apartment is going to run about $1,500 a month. I get EBT, so that'll help with about 50% of your food needs. I also have that's it. So that's all I have. There is no way that I can afford to go in and get a place. So we need this low income housing where you can pay, okay, I get $900 from Social Security. I'll pay $300. They charge you $333, basically a third of what you got. And that's fair. That's, you can build a budget on that. Even if it's a low income budget, you can still build a budget from there, because your rent is not taking everything you're making or more than you're making. So that's definitely another issue that needs to be addressed.
Do you feel like it's harder to live in America now than it was before?
No, I don't. I think the social systems in my lifetime, and I've been in it most of my life. I've been, back and forth to jails and prisons and institutions my whole life. No, I think the programs are getting more realistic. There's still, like I said, the homeless thing has not been treated realistic. The drug addiction thing has. Instead of throwing you in jails and prisons for being a drug addict or sticking you in rehab, they built rehab instead. Nice idea. And then they've got sober living homes that go out and spread out from there. So that unit of the population that's going through those programs are getting good services as they utilize them. Like I said, the one that's short, the big two shorts are the elderly and the mentally ill. They're the one. That's the two big groups where money can be dusted. And they just came out with a $1.5 billion help the homeless budget. Journalistic question to me is, who's getting all that money? Where does it go? Did they give us a breakdown of that? Or do they just randomly place it out there and nobody really knows exactly where it goes? And on TV, they do a few truckloads of food and say, "Whippy, we did something."
This is from the state?
This is from the state? Yeah. State just allocated the next budget of $1.5 billion for the homeless.
Is that strictly to housing, or is it going, do we know where actually the money's going?
It's going to both. It's going to go, from what they said on the news, and I'm listening to the news when they told me this, it's going to both housing and peripheral services. Which the peripheral services is a good idea, but needs to be restructured a little bit. It can't be done like a social program. It's got to be done like a family. We actually go out there and talk to these people. That's what Amy's good about. She came out when we were all down. We used to have 30 guys that hung out in this one spot on the beach. And she'd come down and chip away at us one by one. And eventually, all 30 of us are now getting off the street. I'm the last one of the 30. I swear, I got a picture. I just got to show it to you because it's really cool what is being done. Sorry, let me just find this. There we go. I don't know if you can see that. Let's go that way. But all those people that you might be able to see, all these guys, are now all housed based on Amy Zamudio's work. And based on her program that she's been paying for out of pocket. And that's the other thing that I need to mention. She had the idea of the housing to homeless, or homeless to hotels to housing program. And for everyone she's been putting through, all those people, she started out paying for us until the county picked us up. So she literally out of pocket, for me, it was about 2 months till the housing picked me, or the county picked me up, that she was paying my hotel room to get me off the street. Incredible,
Were those individuals that you met while you were in a homeless situation?
What's that?
Were those individuals you met while you were in a homeless situation, or?
Oh yeah, that's who we hang out with.
So that was your community?
Your fellow homeless guys. What?
So that was your community?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, and if you look at it like this, and this is what a lot of people will never understand because they don't go on the street. The way you protect yourself when you're on the street, sleeping in concrete in the middle of everything, typically blocking somebody that gets pissed and kicks you or whatever. You end up, and the robbers, you got the robbers that come up and rob you straight at night, especially when the checks come out. When Social Security checks come out, a lot of people getting robbed out there. That's when they go and hide. But for every group, there's groups. You know what I mean? So it's just like you in high school with your 5, 6, 7 best friends. You hung out together. You got each other's back, protect each other. You're buffers for each other. And so in the street, there's literally, if there's 10,000 homeless in San Diego, that means there's literally at least 3,000 of these groups of 10.
Sure.
What you have to do, the social workers have to start doing is attack or working with, just like Amy did with us, the group, one by one. And once you're hesitant, trust me, nobody on the street is like, oh, hi, Hal, nice to meet you. It's like, no, leave me alone. You don't have anything I want. But they keep the ones like Amy who kept coming back and saying over and over again, you guys are worth it, man. You guys are worth this. Finally got through. So that's a program that has been proven to work. I don't think it's any more expensive than what they're doing, because these hotels are, I don't think they're paying pretty pennies for them. So most of them would shut down.
I have 2 questions. So what do you mean when Amy was saying you're worth it? What does it mean to be worth it at the time for you? And then also, do you feel like while you're in the streets, since there is theft going on, and do you feel like you developed a mistrust of others? And do you feel like you trusted people who are trying to help you?
You don't trust anyone. That's why it's so hard for people to get in, like Amy. We don't open our arms and say, hey, welcome, nice to meet you. Let's walk up and give us dinner. We'll say thank you, but we won't talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that, like I said, is just self-protection. You never know. You never know who's come up to you all the time and ask you for IDs of this person or that person. And, you're not allowed to say that kind of stuff because that gets you really hurt.
Mm-hmm. And then what was Amy's approach by saying you're worth it? What does that mean?
That you're worth it. That you're worth taking that. You're worth it for me to take the effort on your behalf and help you get going. Kind of be the pump starter of the car. Once she started to get me going, now I'm going. And she's done this over and over and over again. But she slowly brings you in. It's just, you're worth it. And you're worth it for me to take the time to help you with hotel rooms and dinner and whatever you may need. Just ask. And that's tough. It was tough on her, I know, because she was spending a lot of money on a lot of different people.
Mm-hmm. So I have a few more questions, but my next one is, what are some things that people can do? Like if people want to deliver care packages or people want to deliver clothing to people who are sleeping on the streets, what is a way that people can do it in a way that's respectful, in a way that, brings a form of human connection to people, or what's the best way to do that?
Just like you talk to any other human, walk down the sidewalk with a stack of shirts and say, does anyone need some shirts? Mm-hmm. And some people will come up and take some shirts, for sure, everywhere. Socks are always a big thing. If you bring socks, you can break a conversation just by giving someone a pair of socks. They'll talk to you. Food's always good. I always say don't bring money. It doesn't go anywhere. It's just getting thrown in the trash. So, but food and socks and clothes and goodie bags are cool. And that's how a lot of people that want to get to know the homeless people actually do get to know the homeless people. Mm-hmm. We had one guy who would come by every freaking Tuesday and drop off a full spread of food to us. Just my group, and it was us, because he took the liking to us. And you get to know him. And at first you don't talk a lot, but because he's not comfortable either. There's a hesitation on both parts. We're people. I saw you on the street, I'd have a hard time just walking up and start talking to you. But by doing so, you give them permission to open up a little bit. And that's huge, because you really want to start breaking through to the homeless people. You got to help them break through whatever need they have, because for everyone out there, there's a whole other story. You know what I mean? Nobody's story is the same. Mm-hmm. So you have to really take the time on an individual basis to get to know them. And that can be done simply in that, like a half-hour a week walk down your sidewalk and hand them the local homeless guy, because in all of our communities, there's a local homeless guy.
Sure.
And hand them something. Yeah, here's some dinner, man. I had some leftovers. I thought I'd bring them by. Oh, my girlfriend made lasagna last night, and we had leftovers. Here you go. Here's a plate. This is huge, man, because then you humanize them, make us realize that we are still human. Because a lot of people don't do that. They don't look at you like that. I've seen their eyes. I don't respond to it, but some of my friends do. Some of my overexcited friends. Don't be looking at me like that. I'm not for you to look at. I wasn't like that, but that's how some guys feel. Because people do it disrespectfully.
I'm sure it hurts. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I was never bullied.
I have sort of an odd question.
Sure.
So I'm someone who's beginning my career. I think a lot of people are going to watch this, are also probably younger folks. What is some advice, if you had any, that you would give to folks who are younger about life or anything like that?
Oh God, you don't want my advice. If you're getting out of school and starting your career, get a really good financial advisor and plan your future, so you don't end up down the road going, crap, man. I had some really bitching vacations in my 20s and 30s with my family, full blown Disney World stuff. You know what I mean? And didn't put no money away for the day it came that I would have really loved to have that money back. Even that one trip. But that would be my best advice. Get a good financial planner. As far as being homeless, watch out. It can happen to anybody. There's no way to say if you do this or don't do this, it won't happen. Like I said, for every person, there's a whole different story, and you never know what happens. You'd be renting an apartment, the apartment burns down, and all of a sudden you don't have nowhere to go because the landlord's not putting you up. As far as he's concerned, he's mad because you burnt the house down. So all of a sudden you are homeless. But most of those type of people and college students end up living in their cars. They got cars, so that's helpful. You got to be homeless on the streets, get a car. It really makes a difference.
I have one last question, and I think it's very important to ask. It's a pretty grand question. So if you don't have an answer now, it's okay. But what do you think ending homelessness looks like? Will we be able to end it one day? And what do you think it would take for us right now to do it?
Attack it like Americans attack anything. Yes, I think it is a plausible thing to think that someday we'll have enough space put together for the people that live on this planet, being that this planet requires us to have space. It's part of our health and what we do. So yes, I do believe it is possible. The grand scheme of it is going to take some time. I think to start really we need to do two things. Start making super serious projects is really get together people that understand the problem for real. Not people that are coming from Sacramento or Washington or anywhere else or downtown to tell people in the streets how they're going to fix them. That's not going to work. It's never going to work. They've been doing that for years and it hasn't worked. What you need to do is bring them all together. All of our resources need to put into one pile. The technical situation in our state is we have 160,000. Make sure that's the right number. I need some bad statistics. Yeah, our state has 160,000 homeless statewide. So, they've already thrown in 1.5 billion. There's got to be a way we can make a significant dent in that, and that's just this year. Again, I think the answer and the solution is we got to get rid of the bureaucracy in the middle. The state releases the money to them, and then they pass it down, and the trickle down, just like it always is, it doesn't come as it should. So I said I'd love to see the statistical information data on where that money actually went. At the end of this year, where did $1.5 billion go? I want accurate accounting for every penny. Because if you stole 100, they misbudged or misallocated $100, that was one person sleeping in the street that night.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't give a shit. So you really got to look at it like that. That's going to be more your solutions than anything else. And getting our heads together, coming up with a cognitive solution that works. Like I said, I think you need advisors in there. I'll throw my hat in the ring that know, understand, and can function within the system, but also know the streets and what's needed on the street. But I'm very sensitive to costs as well. Like I said, I'm an educated man. So costs and taxes are a huge factor. people aren't going to do this forever. So we got to come up with a solution, a tangible solution, somehow that becomes self-generating and have the problem solved. And in my mind, self-generating, there's a lot of different ways we can do it. Industry through homeless, we can build industry and then homeless encampments of people that want to go and work. People that are here that they're not trying to be lazy bum or homeless. They just can't get a job, or they don't have transportation to a job. Transportation, hygiene, hauling your stuff around when you're trying to get a job is a hard thing to do. So it'd be nice if they could do something like that. But yeah, and I really believe, and let me say this as the end of this statement, is the services that are out there have gotten so much better, like I said before, over the last couple of years. They've come together to become a much more cohesive group. You can get a lot of things done at one event that they put on. These homes that they're putting us in, these new studios, they really need, I believe that they're smart, and I think they already are enough to do this, because I believe it's up at my friend's place, is they have the, your medical people, you have your county people, you have your, what's the other one that's needed? Medical, county, anyway, you have all the services basically in the offices of the complex they're in. That minimizes those guys' casework. The four directional counselors in there to help these people go to the next level now. Because just because we got our permanent housing, as I look at it, I'm not done. I'm just getting started. I now have a house that I can cook dinner in, come home late, invite a date over to, a whole different life again. You know what I mean? It's going to be great. So that's how I look at it. That's the answer.
I appreciate that perspective, because I think sometimes when you think about all the work that needs to be done, you get so angry that you feel like there's no progress being made. But I think to hear from you that there is progress being made, we just got to take a better approach and a larger effort to make sure that we can get everybody off the streets.
And a cohesive approach. We're so scattered about, I'm talking about the activists now. The ones, like I said, they're coming from the government. They're coming in telling us how to do this. What they need to do is bring us to them, and we'll show them how to do this. And there's already been proof verified of programs that are working. In fact, there was one on the federal level, Houses First, that Barack Obama put in care that Trump wiped out. That should be brought back. They're doing it from a federal level as well, called Housing First.
It sounds like you know a lot of policy. Maybe we should put you in Sacramento.
I like politics. It's political.
Okay. Before we close this out, is there anything you think left that you want to share with us, or anything that we might have missed?
Not really, other than I want to thank you for taking the time with me. We all appreciate you guys putting any kind of brain power and thought into helping us out, our situation. It's much appreciated and respected.
Yes, sir. And we're going to continue this conversation. So this is just a solo interview, but I would really love to have you on a panel.
Okay.
So just to be able to share your experience and bounce ideas with other folks. Yeah, thank you so much for being here, and we'll continue the dialogue.
All right. Thank you, my friend.
All righty.